Hey guys, I'm Joe, and this is not a Bradford fence, but soon to be. We're here on location in Little Rock. We're gonna tear out this fence and the other side over here and get a new privacy fence for them. Here the guys are cutting out the panels. We'll cut the panels out first, and you can see Brandon here, he's taking those panels to our dump trailer up front, and so we'll load those in our trailer and haul all that off. You can see here the posts are still left. That'll be the last thing that we remove and load up on the trailer, just for stacking wise. Okay, so we'll check this out here. They're cutting those panels out, and then as they're cutting, they're helping just keep it not to fall on landscaping and stuff. I lost the chain. Obviously, this is an old fence that we're taking out, but one thing you can see on these posts, there's several of them as we're taking them out that they're just breaking off at the ground, and you can see the rot here. And if you look at the shape of this post, you can tell that this actually was a landscape timber and not a actual 4x4 post. So the problem with those landscape timbers is they are designed to sit on the ground, but they're not treated properly to be set in the ground like a post. So that's a pretty common failure. Sometimes people will try to use these landscape timbers because they're half to a third of the price of an actual post, but they will prematurely rot, especially at that ground level, and break off like that. So that's a very common issue whenever you see landscape timbers used instead of a true 4x4 or 6x6 post set in the ground. All right, so over here, yeah, David's cutting out the rest of this section. So for this homeowner wanted to save a few of these sections. So instead of loading them and hauling them off, these three here, we're gonna put on his trailer for him to use for what he's wanting. So yeah, that was a special request for him to save those. But here is our typical setup. You can see that Brandon and David and them, they're staging these panels to put the panels in first, because they'll lay flat and stack, and then we'll be able to have room on top and on the sides to fit in the post that we're taking. So even here, he set this one aside because the post is still on it and not wanting to take up too much extra room. So again, we'll lay those flat and just strategize on how we're putting those in there so we can maximize the space of loading that up. But yeah, that's what to expect whenever we're coming to remove your existing fence. We'll remove these sections, haul everything off, and get it all out of your hair. Because of the slope of the driveway and everything, we weren't able to back this up to honestly a better place for us. It'd be easier the closer we can get to the fence to haul off. So yeah, as best as possible to give us access, as close as possible is best. But here, yeah, we're able to have a clear space in front of the house to be able to pull along the street and get out of traffic as much as possible. But yeah, the day of install, to have vehicles and things out of the driveway and the area clear in front of the house is helpful, because we will have a trailer. If there's removal, you'll have this dump trailer here. Once we get all this loaded up, Brandon will move out of the way, and then Mario is down the street here. But he'll have to have room to pull up with his trailer where he's got the post and concrete that we'll have to unload and get in the back to install. I know it's kind of loud right here, but we were talking through on how to prep for a fence replacement, and this is a good example. This homeowner had some sprinkler lines that were actually attached to the old fence, so we had to discuss with him of taking those off and separating them from the fence so they didn't get damaged when we're tearing this out. He's also got some stuff back here I can show you that we had to walk through in preparation for the fence install. This very back section we're not replacing right now because it happens to be the neighbor's fence, but just to give you a visual, an example, they did have some things like the crosses and the angels hanging on the fence. and there were other ornaments and things on the rest of the fence. So in preparation for us today, they removed all those things that were hanging on the fence, just because we try to take as much care as to preserve those things and all that, but it's easy to miss sometimes, and we start tearing sections out, and we don't want to damage anything that is valuable to you or you want to keep. So it's a good idea just to think through that before we're starting, of if there's like birdhouses, if there's sprinklers, or any kind of yard ornaments, any kind of tools or anything hanging on the fence. You'll want to remove those prior to us coming to tear out the fence. This won't apply to all jobs, but it's a very good example of things for prepping for the install or what you need to if you're replacing a fence. So on this side particular, there was a wooden platform that they had built here, and if you see, the finished side of the fence, or the picket side of the fence, is facing in toward that platform, and it was built up actually onto the fence. So you can see this old board, it was attached to the fence there. So that causes an issue with removing that fence. If we don't address this beforehand, then it's going to either damage or inhibit us replacing these sections of the fence. So they elected to dismantle this part and pull it back from the fence. That allows us to, one, remove the fence without damaging this, but also it was important for them to have the pickets facing in. So anytime that you have the pickets facing in, we need a working area of 2 to 3 feet to be able to run our 2x4s and nail our pickets on that new part of the fence. So that's just something to look for and keep in mind if you've got shrubbery or structures or anything that is immediately up against the fence. That could be something that dictates how you face your pickets and where you can run the fence. So something to think through, something to discuss with your salesperson or whoever you're coordinating with for your fence construction, if you've got things along the fence and how you're going to address those. All right, so there's one other section I'll just show you as an example of what we're talking about with being able to prep and give us working room for putting the fence in. So you can see back here, they had some decking along these timbers up against the fence, and again, we asked them to remove those boards in order to give us access to work there. Also, if you look back there, they've got bricks piled up against the fence, which is not ideal, but in this scenario, we're able to work with it. We probably will have to remove a few of those bricks that are right up against the fence in order to get our new pickets in, but we're able to work with that. All right, and then they're continuing on. They're gonna tear these sections out and load them like we talked about along this side as well. This is Mario. He's one of our crew leads. He's amazing. If you see him show up on your job, you're definitely lucky. All of our guys are awesome. They've been with us a long time and are wonderful at what they do. Mario and David have been with us about 3 years, and they're masters at their craft. You say hey to the camera? Hey, what are you doing here?
We cut the old fence, section by section, to put a new fence.
Yeah. So we mentioned the post and the fact of these particular landscape timbers are rotten and breaking off at the base. So with those, you can see that they're snapping off pretty easy. And then that one, yeah, we'll have to clean that up. But that is so the typical process, even when it's not this degraded and rotten this much, is that we would dig out a little bit around these and then cut those off just below ground level on these old posts. And the reason being is if we were to fully extract this with the concrete, it does create a hole, but we don't like using that hole because it's usually wallered out and it's loosened the dirt around there. So we prefer to offset our new post next to here and get a nice good hole that's going to be stronger, the dirt's going to be more compacted, and then set a brand new footing for our new post just next to this post. Now the only exception to that is going to be, there's not a gate on this side, but like on the other side, there's a gate, and a lot of times gates need to go back in the same place. Corners are similar, where we've got to set a corner back in the same place because we can't move with property lines and that sort of thing. So in those cases, we will dig out the old post and set the new one in that same hole. But ideally, we want to try to get a fresh footing with a whole new hole and a whole new footing when we're putting our new post in. Yeah, you can see here David's using the Sawzall to get down below ground level and cut off these posts that broke off too high. Important to get down as low as we can, so none of that is protruding, and that gets covered up with dirt and grass and just gets blended in with the yard. Okay, yeah, so this is, as you can see, a fairly quick process. We're still working on picking up the post. As we talked earlier, we stacked all those sections in the trailer first, and then now the post sections, we're gonna put those in there to the side or on top of those in order to preserve space and be able to pack that trailer. But you can see it's probably a little after 8 right now. Yeah, so it's 8:30. We started just about an hour ago, maybe a little less than an hour ago, of removing this fence. So we're talking about an hour's time. This is roughly a couple hundred feet, which is an average size backyard that we're pretty close on having all the fence torn down and hauled out of here. And then very shortly, as soon as they get the rest of these posts out and hauled off, then we'll start running our string lines and marking out for our new post and start digging for those new posts. So yeah, Mario and I were just talking about the picket orientation, which is our words for which way the pickets are gonna face, being are you gonna have the finished side, smooth side, picket side facing in toward your yard or facing out. But for us in planning, it matters, one, on how we orient our post. So the first thing that goes in is the post. So we need to know we position the post correctly to accommodate for the 2x4 and picket on either side of that post. And then here, like we talked a little bit earlier, you can see now we got this torn out. You can see how much higher the dirt and this block is than the ground of the neighbor's yard. So the property line runs right in here, so it's pretty tight for us, but we're gonna have to go back just like it was and get the post in with enough space to put our 2x4 and picket right up inside of this block, because they want the pickets in toward this block side. So that is an important thing to consider, one, before you're putting your fence in, and then two, to talk through with your sales rep on how you want the pickets either facing in or out from your yard. So in this case right here, they wanted to keep that antique gate, and so what we're discussing is our plans to be able to reuse that. We're going to use some new hardware that we're using to fit that, but because of the exact width of that gate and the hardware, we've got to plan the spacing of our gate post here. So that's what we're talking about, of exactly how far apart these new gate posts are going to be in order to utilize that new gate or that existing gate. Another thing to note, which is especially on a replacement, you've got to examine and look at your corners and transitions. So Mario and David were just talking about a plan here to replace these posts with the existing pavers, but also on this here, if you can see, the neighbor's fence section shares a post here at the corner with their fence that goes really 3 ways. It goes down the side of their yard, up front, and across here for the gate. So we've got to have a plan for how we're gonna utilize the post here. So in this case, we're gonna be able to just disconnect the neighbor's fence, replace this corner, and then reattach the neighbor's fence, and then have a good new corner to build off of for all these new sections. But again, there's lots of times there's unique scenarios with the way people have built corners in and how they're shared posts, and you want to be able to discuss with your neighbor and with your sales rep on how that's going to work out when you're replacing those shared fences and corners. Okay, so once we got our post out, the very next thing is to run our string lines, which we use string lines to determine where we're going to set our posts, and that keeps everything in line and straight. So you can see they left this end post as a reference, and then are lining up their stake and string with the edge of where these posts are going to be in order to get the same line that the old fence was on and line everything up appropriately. A bit unique with the ties back here on the back. We're having to make sure that we space that appropriately to give us room to fit our post, and then build off from there and still clear the sprinklers and the bushes and all of that. This post is going to be removed and we'll set a new one here. But as you can notice, and we get questions sometimes, this stake is about 18 inches or so away from this post. So we do that intentionally, where we'll go past where we're ending and stake it off, so that when we're digging right here, we're not disturbing that stake and messing up our string line. So we'll always run our string past the corners or the ends wherever we're stopping. The corner is a good example of that too, because we won't put a pin right on the corner. We'll go past and put a pin and then start the other side to stake it off. So see, again, our corner is going to be right there. Our new corner will go back there, but you want to run your string past it this way, and then we'll put another stake back here in order to run this way, so that we've got an open area in that corner when we're digging and setting that post, and it doesn't disturb your stakes and string line. All right, so now we're at the point where we've got our stakes and string line run for the new fence, and we're digging our post holes. So in this particular case, because of all the landscaping and just the terrain, it's hard to get an auger or anything here. So we've got our trusty post hole diggers and a rock bar to dig out these holes and prep them for setting the new post with concrete. You got something down there? Is that for his sprinkler? Is right up on the edge of where we're needing that post.